So I'm gonna be putting some butterflies on this bowl. So eventually it'll look like this little guy once it's done. It'll be inside and out. And to do that, I'm just gonna use, I already cut out some butterflies just out of like a magazine with the paper punch. And I'm just gonna use some water to stick the butterflies on there before I paint over the next color of slip. It's pretty easy. And I kind of eyeball where the exact opposite side is rather than measuring for this. And then just kind of fill in the halfway marks. Oops. I have a whole bunch of different kinds of punches that I use, but this is probably the one I use the most often. And then sometimes I'll just kind of make my own patterns and cut those out with an X-Acto knife. If you ship a lot of stuff, you ship a lot of pottery, and you go through Uline, you know how they always send you those catalogs, like you end up getting 2 with each shipment. Those I think make the best butterflies. I had like stacks and stacks of those before I moved into the new studio, and then of course I got rid of them all when I moved in here. So I'm using subpar magazine for this, but you get the idea.
I have a question. Is it one layer of magazine, or do you sometimes bulk it up and use multiple layers when you punch it?
No, well, yeah, when I'm doing the punches, I'll usually punch like 4 pages at a time. That seems to get the best result. If you just punch 1 page, the punch doesn't work very well. And then also, you know, obviously it takes a lot less time if you're doing 4 pages at a time. That seems to work the best. So now I've got butterflies going all the way around. I'm going to paint a layer of slip on. Which I use another kind of tip for mixing, like if you have a lot of commercial glazes like I do. I got one of those like frothers for like milk when you're making coffee, and I cut the tip off of it. It comes battery powered, but it's not very powerful, and then it fits right into my Dremel tool, so I can just kind of turn that on and mix it up pretty good. And then I can just spin it to rinse it off. And that works pretty well. So I'm going to paint about 3 coats of this over top of the butterflies that I've already put on here. And even though I don't do like crystal and glazes or anything, I end up using this Mako crystal and glaze engobe because it just like the way that it looks, the way that it brushes on. It's better than I think any of the other underglazes or engobes that I've used. So I have like every color of this, and I use those a lot. You don't want to wait until it's completely dried before you pull off the butterflies. If you wait, the paper will get like permanently stuck to the pot and will be a pain to get off. And if I've left the paper on there before accidentally, where I realized I just like forgot one butterfly and then fired it. And while the paper burns out, the color that you're painting on over top of it kind of stays. So you sort of end up with this weird sort of ghost of a butterfly. So I'm just gonna let that coat dry just a little bit before I paint on the next one. Anybody have any questions while I'm doing that? Hello. I get kind of impatient waiting for paint to dry, but usually it's pretty quick. The nice thing is with this, if the bowls get too dry and it ends up, I like to do it at a leather hard stage. That seems to work the best, but if it goes all the way bone dry, it's not a lost cause. I can still put on the butterflies. It just kind of takes some more water usually to get them to kind of stick on there. Sometimes they'll pop off if it's too dry and you have to kind of do it a little faster than I like to. So this is coat number 2. I like using the fan brushes if I'm painting glaze on because it goes on really smooth. What does that mean since it's in the round? Oh, yes. Okay. So I have to wait for this coat to dry up a little bit. Yes. I like to also put things on the bottom of my pots rather than just kind of leaving it as a plain bottom. So while that is setting up a little bit, just flip it over and then add some butterflies to the bottom. I think it's just going to be one because it's a small bowl. Again, just add some water to kind of stick it down. Wait for some of that to evaporate a little bit. I don't wax the bottoms or anything. I'm just going to put a clear glaze over the part with the butterflies before I fire it, and then if I end up getting any on the foot, I'll just wipe it off. When I've tried to use wax in the past, I end up getting it where I don't want it, and then it's a pain to try and get it off to get glaze to go where you want it to, so just wiping it off works well for me. A lot of waiting involved with this. Normally I'm doing like a bunch at a time. And I hate wax. Even with those, like when you're heating the wax up in one of those cookers, that's just never turned out well for me. I end up burning myself and getting wax everywhere. I guess I'm klutzy. Sharp objects and hot wax is no good. I'm gonna put butterflies all over the inside too, but I don't want to do too much all at one time, or else I get areas that are starting to dry when I'm still painting some parts of it, and then the butterflies will get stuck on there like I don't want them to. And I think this slip is actually thick enough that I can get away with just 2 coats of it. Alright, so now you can see where it's starting to dry up a little bit. There's areas that are still kind of wet and some that are getting dry, so it's almost to the point where I want to start pulling them off, but I'm not quite there yet. This is actually like something I bought for making jewelry that I ended up not really needing to use, but it works good as a paper remover. Has anybody else tried any kind of paper resist before? It's kind of fun. I kind of stumbled on it by accident, just playing around with stuff that I cut out myself first. Alright, I'm going to try taking this one off. This one will be a little easier because it's kind of sticking up. So just kind of tease the edge up and then slowly pull it away like that. That came across pretty clean. And then once it's totally dry, there's like little, areas that aren't perfect in there. I can go back with an X-Acto knife once it's bone dry and just kind of clean it up a little bit at that point. Find another good one to take off. Sort of like doing surgery. It's nice when they come off whole. Sometimes you just catch it at the wrong time and you're pulling it off in pieces. That's a little annoying, but I cut them out with a paper punch. You can see like this, and just punch them out of magazines. Not that fancy, that's the easy way to do it. And I do make some simpler shapes myself, like spirals and things like that if I'm gonna do something with that. And you don't want to do too big of an area at once, because if they get too dry, then that's when you kind of run into trouble and they're real hard to get off. Or if they're too wet like that one is. I can go back and clean up those little bits that are stuck on there. And last one from the side. And that's pretty much it. Any final questions? That's kind of what I wanted to show you guys tonight. All right, well, thanks for watching. Have a great night.